Welcome to the Grumpy Guy BJJ podcast with your hosts James Wilson and Rob Eickhoff. We are here making friends and solving problems one podcast at a time.
Okay, and we're back with another episode of Grumpy Guy BJJ podcast. I'm your co-host James Wilson here with my buddy Rob Eickhoff. How's it going, Rob?
It's going good, James.
Excellent. Yeah, we had a good day of training today. I'm going to record this podcast on the top 10 BJJ mistakes and then go eat a brisket that my wife's been brining for the last 4 or 5 days. So that should be pretty good. That's kind of one
sweet.
of those. Yeah, I've never really done that before. It came what's that called? The Rooted Gypsy Farm. So one of the local farms, and they'll put together some different produce and meats and stuff from local, farms and stuff. And so, yeah, they shows up with this brisket and this giant beet, man. I didn't know beets came that big. It was like the size of my face, and it was cut in half. And we're like, what the hell do you do with this giant beet? And but then they get these little recipes, and in the recipe, it was like, oh yeah, juice the beet for the brine for the brisket. So yeah, that's
Looking forward to it.
Me too, man.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it as well. And then after that, if you're up for it, we've got Anatomy Park, the Rick and Morty game.
I am up for it.
Yes, so we've killed.
Have you figured it
Shallow
out?
and I have played it and figured it out. It's pretty fun. It was actually easier to figure out than the Total Recall game was. But it's a fun game. So
Speaking of that, this is super random, but there's a rapper that I listen to. His name's Logic. Just came out with a new album, and the very first track on the album is called Grandpa's Spaceship. And it's Rick. It's Rick and Morty.
Rick and Morty.
It's Rick and Morty, man.
That's funny.
And it's actually Rick and Morty. It's like an intro audio track.
Yeah.
And they use Grandpa Rick's voice.
Okay,
and Morty.
okay,
Dude,
yeah.
it's awesome.
Dude, that's funny. That show is
I was
funny.
cracking up when I hit play on that album today. I was like, holy shit!
Yeah.
It's Rick and Morty. So
Yeah, heck yeah. No, I love that one. Have you seen all 3 seasons?
no, I still haven't.
Haven't seen season 3.
No.
So yeah, that's pretty good.
I think I might go completely off the rails and just get rid of my TV.
Think so.
I was thinking about it. I barely watch it. I was going to ask you that
I
because
guess-
you gave me that TV.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you if you
I don't
wanted
give
it back.
a shit, dude. No.
Or if I sell it, I'll give you the money or something.
man, it's fine.
We'll go to lunch or something.
You can
If I
just
sell
add
it-
it to the list of privates you owe me.
That's a growing list.
It is.
I'm sure.
I think I got 2 or 3.
Yeah, at least.
I told you I played the long game, man. I talked you into them when you weren't a black belt, so they have increased in value now. I waited.
Oh, I see what
I was playing the privates market.
Damn, man. As you bought in early on that stock.
Bought in early, yeah, exactly. So
I got duped.
yep, it's all right. You like your bike.
It's like the pump.
Well, you took my bike, the Airdyne bike,
Airdyne bike, the rower,
the rower,
TV.
That's right, I got the TV. Yeah.
I'm sure there's been some other shit in there.
Yeah,
I
every
feel
time
like
I'm clearing stuff out or moving, you start making.
I
out.
benefit.
It's good, man. It's all right. I'm glad somebody can take the stuff.
Oh yeah.
Make use of it. So, well, cool. Training today. So this is just kind of rolling back a little bit. This is actually take 2 on this podcast. We made an attempt on recording this last weekend, but it was our 3rd day in a row. And it was after a long, hard day of training. And so it wasn't up to our standards. Now, our standards aren't the highest in the world. So that should probably tell you where it was at. So we're going over this one again. But ironically enough, it was a Saturday evening. And one of the things that we talked about that I thought was good, I think, maybe touch on again, was the Grumpy Guy Fit class. And just some of the stuff that we've seen people, because we've been doing it for a little bit now, and just some of the common just some of the results and stuff that we've seen, and just some of the insights and stuff we've taken from it. Because I know we were talking about the breathing. That was one of the things that a lot of people don't think about, as far as when they're doing the mobility stuff and they're doing their strength training stuff, watching your breathing and how much that helps, and even helps your cardio and rolling. Because that's something I really noticed from doing the ramping isometrics is, how much that's gotten better. So, but if you're not focusing on your breathing and you're just kind of going through it, then you may not necessarily get that benefit. So, Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good point because, it feels weird because I think we talked about this. Yeah, like I haven't been doing a ton of specific cardio training. I've been doing the ramping ISOs, our Grumpy Guy Fit class. I do it another time a week at my house. And I do a little bit, like I guess you'd call it cardio, like
daily neck ISOs though.
Of course, I do. That's a different thing. That's just because I want a gigantic neck.
It's so
I
funny.
want remember what Vitor Belfort looked like back in just when he was roided to the tits?
Oh yeah.
When he had, his neck was huge, his trap muscle started up at his ears and it went down to his, just neck like this. Yeah, that's what I want.
Okay.
I just want this giant fucking neck.
All right.
I don't know why. I mean, it just sounds cool, man. But anyways, I haven't been doing a ton of cardio. I'll ride the bike a little bit here or there, row, but most of my training has just been the ramping ISOs and then, jiu-jitsu, then wrestling. Yeah. And my cardio, or, my endurance, I should say, while wrestling feels really good. Yeah. And that's just a testament to it right there. A lot of that is I just focus on my breathing while I'm doing my mobility every day. And then while I'm doing my ramping ISOs, I just concentrate on my breathing. And again, there too, I got it down to where I usually get 6 to 8 breaths in each 30-second increment.
Right, yeah.
So I got it timed out. I know about when the 30 seconds is going to be because I know where my breathing is. And it's amazing. It doesn't seem like it makes sense, but my endurance feels good when we're training. So that's it. As simple as that.
Yeah, I think it definitely has helped me too. The whole idea of being able to maintain your breathing under tension, because it's so easy to just let it go. Man, we're doing those wall squats today. God. If you let your breathing go, if you start to chest breathe, and it feels like, dude, just take that quick gasp. That gasp will feel good. It'll help you. And as soon as you do, it's Dunsville. It's so you're not going to get it back. So you just have to sit there and just fight that instinct and force yourself to just keep breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth, like old Mr. Miyagi said. And but yeah, what you do in training, that's the whole point of training. If you're not gonna learn to breathe better when you're rolling, for the most part, it's doing stuff like that, and focusing on your breathing that is gonna help you with that. Same thing with the mobility work. The idea of when you get into those deep ranges of motion, and you watch your breathing, and you notice a lot of times it'll switch to the panic breathing where you're breathing in your chest and short, shallow breaths and not breathing into the belly anymore. And so then that's going to be an instinctive response. So when you get put into an extreme range of motion when you're rolling, your breathing's going to change. And so the whole idea when you're grappling is to, remain calm. And the best way to remain calm is to keep your breathing under control. So if you're not practicing that, man, when you're doing your mobility work, working on those extreme ranges of motion, and then, working on those ramping ISOs, just any strength training really, but the ramping ISOs, because you're not moving, so you can just focus on perfect breathing, perfect posture, like tension creates that posture in the right areas. So, but yeah, and then when you roll, that's just what your body knows now, and so it just instinctively does that. So
yeah, it was a very good, unexpected side effect from going to that Steve Maxwell seminar and learning the mobility and the ramping ISOs. Because now I would have to say I'm pretty well in that habit when I'm training. When I get into a fucked up position and I got to sort it out, okay, how am I getting out of here? My instinct is get my breath back first. Yeah. I catch myself doing it. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I just nice big deep breaths, and then I start going. And it's only a breath or two, but it's just I check myself real quick. Right. And Kevin's got me all twisted up like a pretzel. I was like, all right, fix my breathing. Yeah. And then find your way out. It's a good habit.
It is.
And I didn't foresee that coming by doing those. Yeah. But it's yeah.
Yeah, it's been a good good thing, man. For me, I read that book on Russia's system of breathing, and then I started putting some of the concepts and stuff that they were talking about together with the ramping ISOs and the mobility stuff. So with the mobility stuff, man, making sure you keep breathing. That's the other thing. When we're doing our frog stretches, or we're doing some of the stretches that have you moving from position to position, that's another thing. People will do good breathing when they're in a position, and then they'll go to move and they'll start holding their breath. And so the idea of just keep breathing, and not watch those breath holds because that's what's gonna, get you, man. Holding your breath is the worst thing that you can do when you're rolling, because it changes your chemistry. Like your carbon dioxide levels go up, it changes your brain chemistry. So I think we talked about this in the last podcast, with your confidence, right? And how if you're not breathing well and these carbon dioxide levels are going up, like, man, it don't matter what self-affirmations you're telling yourself. Like, your brain is literally like panicking and saying, you got to breathe, and that's the only thing you can think of. And same thing with like diaphragmatic breathing versus chest breathing. Same thing. It changes the hormonal environment in the body, the way that the brain is registering the situation. So when you take those, just even one or two, set the breathing back into a good diaphragmatic breath and clear out the carbon dioxide, well, that puts you in a physical state that makes you better able to think and better able to react versus, holding your breath or chest breathing and the heart rate's going up. Those put you in a physical environment where you can't think and you're going to not react well. So you're going to fucking revert to rigor mortis guard. So, which you don't want to do.
Instructional coming soon. For
yeah. It's called just start breathing and doing everything wrong, and then just get real stiff while you try to catch your breath.
That was the purpose of rigor mortis guard.
That was the purpose of rigor mortis guard, man, was just like trying to catch my breath.
That's funny.
But I have noticed. I mean, obviously, I still do it sometimes, but I don't know. I think that, one, just being more aware of it, but two, the cardio, man, I don't find myself out of breath the same way that I was, so I don't feel the need to just have to set up camp somewhere
and breathe,
and just get real stiff and stubborn so I can just catch my breath. But yeah, so again, it's like, man, like I knew I didn't want to do it, right? But my brain, it didn't matter at that moment. Like, my internal environment hijacked my conscious thinking and all of that stuff. And so, yeah, dude, if you're not focusing on your breathing, then yeah, what the fuck are you doing? So everything's cardio training when you do it right. Like, that's the thing that I always tell people when I was training them, that they're like, oh, what do I need to do for cardio training? And I'm like, really? Okay, so we're gonna have the stuff that you compartmentalize as cardio training, but the reality is everything you do should be cardio training, because you should be practicing proper breathing mechanics and good posture, and those are the main things that are going to contribute to your cardio. And so like compromising those things isn't good. And that's what we talk about with the ramping isos, right? Like, the big mistake we see people make is that transition from the 80% to the 100%. And then they just start doing whatever. Their breathing goes to whatever, their posture and their tension patterns go to whatever. And so they're not like really conscious of doubling down on those good breathing and posture habits when the going gets tough. So guess what's going to happen when you're rolling and the going gets tough? So it's training the brain, man. It's like, that's the frontier. That's the thing that I think Joel Jameson have mentioned before. He's wrote the Ultimate MMA Conditioning book and trains. He's worked with a lot of fighters, but most well known currently for working with Mighty Mouse Johnson. But that's the thing I think he does really well, is tie in the brain connection and understanding that things like environment and all of these things matter when you're trying to improve somebody's conditioning or cardio or endurance, whatever words you put on it. But yeah, man, if you're not respecting the brain and you're just trying to work hard, like, fuck, you're I don't know. I don't want to say you're wasting your time, but you're damn near close to it. Like, you could just be reinforcing bad habits that are going to fuck you when it counts, that if you weren't doing that stuff, may not have those habits ingrained. So, anyways.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it like that. Because I think a lot of people, or let's say the old school mentality is, for cardio training, is you either got to get out there and pound the pavement, or you got to spend out, cardio training, you're on the elliptical, you're on the exercise bike, whatever, and just miles after miles after miles. But you said, everything you do should be cardio training. Yeah. That's huge. Like, you said it and just kept going, but man, that's gold. Like, everything you do should be cardio training. And when you concentrate, no matter what lift you're doing, what exercise you're doing, what stretch you're doing, whatever it is, if you're able to control your breathing and you create that habit of controlling your breathing, it's not that big of a deal to have that control of your breath in more stressful situations.
Yeah.
It's more of a normal thing.
Yeah.
You know, instead of, say you are doing cardio training, you're doing sprints on the Airdyne or something, and you know, you don't let your breath just get crazy on you.
Yeah. That's why I would tell, like that, when I was training the mountain bikers, in all the cardio programs I would send them, I would emphasize, like, look, I'm telling you to do this amount of time for this amount of reps at this effort, but man, you've got to let your breathing and posture dictate that. You cannot let the breathing and posture go.
Be secondary just to get in the reps.
Yeah. Just because you're like, man, if I just for this 5 seconds, just whatever I can, and I'll get a few more watts, or I'll get a few more whatever out of it. I'm like, no, that's not a good trade-off. That's not a good trade-off, because you remember the old Vince Lombardi line, "Fatigue makes cowards of us all."
Yes, I love that.
It's a good line, but really what he the reason that fatigue makes cowards of most people is because their training is subpar. So when the fatigue sets in and the chips are down, man, then the body has to revert to what it knows instinctively on a subconscious level. It can't think. You really see what their training is, and most people's breathing and movement is shitty when they train, especially when they're doing their quote unquote cardio training. So when fatigue hits them, all of a sudden, at 80-90% they look good, and then all of a sudden, man, you can tell when they're gassed, because they look different, they move different, they're breathing different. But if your body doesn't even know, like, this is why I would, in the gym, I wouldn't allow bad reps, because you don't even want your body to know what a bad rep feels like. Because when it's tired, it's only going to revert to what it knows. And so if it doesn't even know what a bad rep feels like, then it's not going to revert to doing bad reps. And I would see that, like, it's funny, like one time I went and did a CrossFit workout with one of the local gyms, and it was like soon after. Like, CrossFit's gone a long way since then. This is I'm some great CrossFit athlete, but I did like way better than I expected during the workout, because again, being a CrossFit workout, you're competing. It's who can finish the time fastest. And the thing that I noticed was that, man, when we were 3 rounds in, halfway through the last round of fucking, jumping rope and doing cleans with an arbitrary amount of weight, and, kipping pull-ups and all this other crazy shit, I looked around, man, and I just saw everybody's form just falling to shit. Everything looked like shit, and mine just looked the exact same, and I was focused so much on making it, because that's the most efficient way to go. I'm burning energy. I'm wasting energy. Like, that's the thing that people don't realize is, man, when you start moving and breathing bad, you're wasting energy. And so it's that irony of, like, you get tired, and so you start breathing and moving bad, so you're wasting energy at the worst time possible. Like, that's when you should be doubling down on good breathing and good movement. And man, if you don't have those things dialed in, then all the cardio training in the world ain't gonna help you. A lot of times it just reinforces okay, push hard, go to that whatever posture and breathing pattern gets you through this, and then you do that when you roll. So
that's such good advice, and I have done that exact thing you're talking about, like letting breathing and movement just go to shit. We all have to get the reps done, or to get the fastest time, or whatever the case may be. To where, if somebody just would have told me to prioritize breathing and movement, I don't care if you get the reps done in the allotted amount of time, or if you're the fastest so you can put your name up on the whiteboard.
Yeah.
That is irrelevant. Like, movement and breathing, that is paramount. And the idea of not letting your body know what a bad rep feels like, so it doesn't revert back to that when you are sucking.
Yeah.
That's important too.
It is, man. Same thing goes for jiu-jitsu. That's like when you're drilling in class, like, we tell people all the time, like, what you do when you drill is what you're going to do when you roll. And that's basically what we mean is, like, dude, when you're tired and you're out of breath, and you hit that sweep and you jump up and like, holy shit, I got swept again. Well, why was that? Well, it's because when you drill and you were practicing the sweep, you're just coming up lazy and not coming up and finishing in a strong position. Just, little things like that make a difference. But that's what it's speaking to, is that man, what you do when you're drilling or you're working out or whatever it is, like that's what you're going to revert to when you're fatigued. And that's why, Vince Lombardi said fatigue, I don't agree fatigue makes cowards of us all. Fatigue makes cowards of the people who didn't put in the fucking work in the first place, the right work to make sure that when fatigue hit, they were prepared for it. That's the difference, man. I don't think most people really truly train themselves to prepare for fatigue and to handle it properly. They train themselves to like win something
at
that
all
day.
costs.
Yeah, I got to get this many reps or this much weight or get this many sprints and intervals. And it's like, man, that's a different aim, right? Like we've talked about before, like what you aim at determines what you see. So like if your aim is just to like get through these workouts and put these numbers up, you're going to see things differently. But if your aim is to prepare yourself as best you can so that when fatigue sets in, you're as prepared as you possibly can to keep performing as efficiently as possible, things start looking a whole lot different. But really, like that's your goal. Like that's your ultimate goal. Like that's what you want. If you're a jiu-jitsu athlete, that's your goal. It's not the numbers over here, so it's that ability, like, man, when the shit hits the fan and you're tired of shit, like, does your moving and breathing go to hell, or you just keep breathing and keep moving and just make it last as long as you can? So it's but anyway, but that's why I think the Grumpy Guy Fit stuff is so good. It's gives people a chance if they take that. So that's why like I really try to reinforce in people's heads to breathe, man. In through the nose, out through the mouth, like good old Mr. Miyagi said. Told Daniel-san, paint the fence, in through the nose, out through the mouth.
I think we must be doing something right because we're getting a lot of people that keep coming back.
Yeah.
People come in and try it, and then they show up again the following week, show up again the next week. So,
nah, man,
it's good.
It's good, and it's good to have a group doing it because those wall squats. I mean, God, I don't want to do those by myself.
I don't understand why those are so terrible.
Because the leverage is just bullshit for your hips. You have no hip leverage.
It's all
whatsoever.
just all quads.
It's all I mean, not
right.
Your hips, but you're not able to get your hips underneath you to help have your hips help hold you up. So it's so much quads and so that's why, man. It's a bitch, dude.
It is.
Those things are terrible. So
I think those are the probably most difficult.
What do we call them? A self-ramping exercise?
Yeah.
Because there's some of them where it's like, you want to go 50, 80, 100, but it's like, dude, the timer just takes care of itself.
It's survival, dude.
Yeah.
You get 10 seconds into that first 30 seconds, you're like, my legs are starting to burn.
Yeah.
And then 15 seconds in, 20 seconds in, you're like, and then when you try to ramp up the effort to 80%, dude, and then you try to, by the time I'm trying to ramp up to 100, I'm just trying not to fall off the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to put more effort into like putting tension on the belt.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what's happening.
No. It's like, it's not happening, man. It's it's a bitch, man.
It is. It's a good one.
But that's probably like one of those. Really, the breathing just stands out, right? Like we were talking about.
That's all you can focus on. Because if you focus on your legs or something
else,
it's like done.
Yeah, it's like in the systemic breathing book, they're talking about like once you connect your breathing to your movement, theoretically, as long as you can breathe, you can keep moving. And so, I know I'm not moving during the isometrics, but you're still having to fuel the tension. And so it's like connecting that breathing to the tension creation. Well, how long can you keep breathing? Well, that should be how long you can keep creating the tension. Like theoretically, that's what I think in my mind, man. I'm like, okay, I can breathe. One more breath. Okay, one more breath. It's just one breath at a time, and that's what gets you through. But dude, it's.
I like how you call us all out at the end of the wall squats.
That was funny.
Because we have this, for everybody listening, we have a timer going on the phone, and the little dude on the phone gives you the last 3 seconds. So he gives it like a 3, 2, 1, and done. And all of us hit shit at 1. Like, cause we were I was waiting to hear, I didn't want to hear the word done. I was waiting to hear the 1. And as soon as he goes, I heard the little voice come on, 3, 2, 1. As soon as he hit 1, like I just started collapsing. And then you call everybody out like, you bitches, you're supposed to wait until it was done.
Until he says done. Yeah. Dude, it was funny, man. I was sitting there, but but I just saw it in my peripheral vision, just like, dude, some people, like, as soon as 2, like, they were, like, cheating, like, timing when 1 was going to be said. I just saw, like, this wave of people sit down around me, and I was like, oh, man, those bitches.
That's funny.
And then we had to talk. So is it when he says, duh, to start done, or has he got to finish done to be done? I mean, we were, like, getting into it, but, so anyways, yeah.
That's funny.
It is funny stuff, man.
All right.
Cool, man. So, yeah.
That was some good pre-show. There's
some good stuff
little
in there.
nuggets in there.
Yeah, that's
man.
why I wanted to.
That was way
touch
better
on
than the
some of
pre-show you brought up to me prior to turning on the microphones.
Dude, stop. You cannot. Listen, when I'm drinking and I'm watching fucking television, dude, I cannot be held responsible for the politically incorrect thoughts that run through my head.
I so want to be. If this is go number 2 at this episode, and if I was to bring up what you wanted, the bro science you brought up prior to recording, we would have to scrap this, right? I would have to at least edit it out.
I know, man.
But part of me wants to, just to let the world know that how James really is when that microphone isn't on.
Dude. Anyways, I don't even remember, man. It was funny. So, yeah. Now I just watching some TV with the family last night. And, I get a couple beers and a bowl in me, man. And I just start riffing on people and poking fun of situations. And, yeah, I get all grumpy on stuff. And, I mean, anybody that listens to us knows that we're definitely not politically correct. And, I mean, we just came up in a generation where that shit just didn't even exist, man. Remember, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me? Yeah. Like, what the fuck happened to that, man?
Oh, that doesn't exist
anymore. No, it doesn't exist anymore. So, anyways, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, leave it at that. Cool note, I had my Grumpy Guy t-shirt on today at the grocery store.
Yeah?
And the cashier, she's like, Grumpy Guy, huh? She's like, you don't seem very grumpy. I was like, well, I'm not always grumpy, but it's kind of my default mode, and I have to like stay away from it. She's like, I feel you. She's like, I'm pretty grumpy most of the time, too.
There's a lot of grumpy people out there, man.
She liked it.
That's funny, yeah. Yeah, we're going to have to get the shirts thing going. I mean, I'll be gone for a few weeks, so this is actually our last pre-recorded one that we'll be doing. So our next one will be back to getting onto the live train. But yeah, we'll get some t-shirts and coffee mugs and stuff going. We've had a few requests.
Oh yeah,
in and out of the gym. So yeah, man. Oh, how's your knee?
It feels pretty good.
Yeah,
it got a little tired training. I think it was good last night that scrape on my forehead started bleeding. It kind of limited the amount of training. I got quite a few good rounds in, but
yeah,
my forehead was starting to bleed pretty good, so I didn't want to bleed all over everybody, so I stopped. I probably had half a dozen rounds in last night, but I could feel my knee was a little tired when I went home and iced it. But I did a bunch of rounds a day.
Yeah, you and Kevin were going at it, man.
Yeah, and it feels good, dude.
Good.
So
nice.
I mean, I didn't do any takedowns, and I wasn't even standing up to try to pass. I would try to sweep and come up, and I would stand up, but I didn't feel confident enough to like start to plant my foot if I hit a puddle of sweat and my leg gets all.
You don't want things getting wiggly.
Yeah. I don't want my knee getting wiggly, so I didn't test it that.
Yeah.
But like any position, like with a butterfly hook or whatever, it was all
nice.
There was a couple little positions, that made it like when you and I did a round or two. You going after some legs or the way you grab my leg, like it was fine. But I could tell it's not 100%. Like I get out of that position, and it's weird. I don't know if it's just psychological, but I could feel like the tendons were tired. Like my knee joint itself was tired.
Yeah.
Once I broke your grip and got out of there, I was like, that fucking James hanging onto my leg, making my knee tired.
God damn it,
I'm gonna have to smash him now.
You're fucking yeah. You needed an excuse. That's what it was, man. No, I was hanging on for dear life. You're like, God damn it, man. That was funny. Yeah, you're even talking to me today about like, oh, you just I feel like you'd give up in side control. And it's like, motherfucker, I feel like I've been doing so much better there. But my problem is I've been talking to you about my strategies and all this shit I've been doing. And dude, I could tell last night, man, like as soon as you got to side control, like I started to set up to try to like do my thing. And man, you were like, you just fucking mounted so hard and so fast. Like I had no chance to do anything. So it's good. I need to, it's new problems.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but yeah, I almost last night, you fucking right after you did that and you reminded me, I was like, I almost said like, motherfucker, that's the last time I tell you,
your strategies.
I'm working on my strategies, dude.
You know it's not.
I know it's not
You know
because
it's
we're
not.
the same way. Like we don't believe in parlor tricks and shit, man. So
no, we're no parlor tricks.
Yeah, I know if it's working when you know what I'm coming for, then it's legit.
Yep.
So, because that's always my fear, man, is that my jiu-jitsu is garbage because there's some giant hole that I don't know is there, or so yeah, that's why I'm like, dude, here's what I'm doing. And so yeah, make sure that I'm doing it right, and so yeah.
It's a great feeling when you know your opponent knows what you're going to do, but you can still do it.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
It's pretty badass.
It's like when you get an ankle lock, everybody knows.
Yeah, everybody knows, but it's still a good feeling.
Still a good feeling,
it's
man.
It's a great feeling. It's a good way to stroke your ego. If you get smashed a couple times, and then you can go to your A game. It's like, all right, I feel better about myself.
Yeah, I
the
know.
universe seems right.
I had to do that a couple times, and I've been really working on taking your and Kevin's advice with coming up to pass off of the ankle locks and stuff, but every once in a while gets me into trouble. I'm like, fuck this shit. I just need my A game for a minute so I can feel good about myself. So
it's easy to revert back.
It is.
Because when you're trying to switch that mindset, or trying to improve new things, like you go through that period of just getting smashed, and it's just it's inevitable.
Yeah, but it's been good, even though like today I could tell. Man, actually, like going with Cameron, he's like the original leg lock wizard in the fucking gym, and still just trying to catch up to his fucking bag of tricks. But man, somehow I managed to get his ankle. But the funny thing is even just me working passing it just kind of set in a less stubborn mindset with things, and so like I started like switching to X guard and then switching back, and then wait a minute, well, he's so worried about that he's not paying attention to the other leg, and so there was this kind of like back and forth thing that I was doing that, like, honestly before I probably wouldn't have. I would have just gotten his damn leg and EickhoffGrumpy, and okay, it's a battle of attrition at this point, man. And you can't do that with that guy because he'll fucking reverse the leg.
Tricks,
yeah, man, he's got tricks too. So, but it was and of course right after I got him with the ankle lock, he came back and knee barred me in like 20 seconds, so it was but I don't know, it was cool. Like I said, even though I was kind of going back to my A game, the mindset of realizing, like, dude, you got to stop being so stubborn with this position and let things flow a little bit. Like, oh, hey, that actually opened up my A game a little bit more. So yeah, no, it's good, man. It's good. That's why I'm glad I got you guys around to fucking call me out on that stuff.
Well, and what's cool with that too is because then you start learning you're opening your game up so you can do new stuff, and you start learning how to use that to play mind tricks with your partner.
Yeah.
Because that way they know what you like to do, and you can dupe them into think you're doing that.
Yeah.
And they come around the backs, or something.
No, I know.
You play these. I say it's a long game within that 5-minute round, but you do. You do. You're duping them. It's fun.
Dude, it was funny last night. I was rolling, and there was a half second I caught Kevin off guard because we got in a leg entanglement position, and of course he's expecting me to just keep looking for the ankle and trying to look for that. And man, I like popped up and started looking for the pass, and I could tell there was a half a beat where he was like, oh fuck, and of course then he gets right back on top of me. But that's exactly what it was. It was like everybody's so used to this that now when I start doing something different, it's catching them off guard. Well then, yeah, like we were talking about last time, well guess what, that's going to open back up. So yeah, yep. It's good, man. So yeah,
the never-ending experimenting with jiu-jitsu.
I know, man. It is. It's self-experimentation, taken to the extreme. Because you got to hone in on stuff to get good at it, and then you got to expand back out to so it can integrate into everything else and actually be better than if you just kept honing in on it. So getting too predictable and stuff. So heck yeah.
Cool.
All right, man.
All right. So we dig into it.
Yeah, let's dig into it, dude.
The top 10 BJJ mistakes and what to do instead.
Yes.
So this is the list we put together, and it's the list that you guys get when you sign up for our podcast updates, our little BJJ improvement starter kit. This is the exact same list you guys get. So now we are going to dig into it.
Yeah.
We didn't realize that we hadn't done an episode on this.
I know, yeah.
Which was surprising. Like, I couldn't believe we hadn't done one.
Had to go back and check.
I know.
Because we took notes and like a lot of things that we do, you took your notes and I took my notes, and then we came together to kind of compare. And I think, probably 6 out of the 10, we both had pretty much the same thing. And then, there were a few things that maybe we had worded a little bit differently that we kind of, okay, let's word it this way, we agree on. And I think there's like maybe 1 or 2 things where we talked about it and like, okay, yeah. So, we were pretty much on the same page with the list. But yeah, I think that's why we thought we did an episode, because we went through this whole like debate and discussed it process, and it's like, wait a minute, we didn't record that kind of thing. So yeah, and the list that you guys get will be a lot shorter than our answers here. We've got some little succinct things for like, here's what you should do instead. But what we wanted to do is give you guys a little bit more of the long version and go over the mistake, and then Rob and I kind of discuss some of our advice and thought process behind it, and then move on. So sound good?
That sounds good to me.
All right,
you ready?
man.
We'll dig right in.
Let's do it.
Number 1, rolling with an ego. Have at it, James.
Yeah, man. No, I think that's number 1 for a reason. I mean, it's almost cliche in jiu-jitsu that you can't let the ego get to you. So I think it's more important for people to understand, like, what does that mean, right? Like, a lot of things, we say it, but like, well, what does that mean really? So, some of the common ways, we've discussed a lot of this before, but, some of the common ways that ego can get in the way, especially like if you're new, smashing on girls or smaller people. We've talked about like how feeling sorry for yourself with, your training partner or your coaches and stuff aren't good enough. Like, that can be the ego coming back to get you. So the ego can manifest itself in a lot of different ways, but really, man, to put it in a nutshell, anything that's it's balancing the right. You want to be confident but not overconfident, and that's like kind of the struggle there. I don't know, man. What's your take on it?
So yeah, like you said, it will manifest itself in several different ways, and you'll learn to pick those out. And what we were just kind of talking about is one way it manifests itself on how reverting back to your A game. And not wanting to try new stuff because you get your ass whooped. Yeah. And that is your ego.
That was my ego.
I do. Hey,
man.
We do the same. Yes. We all do the same shit. It never goes away because it's good, it's comfortable, and it makes you feel good about yourself when you leave the gym. Instead of leaving on an ass whooping, you're leaving on a victory. That's just your ego talking.
Yeah.
So I would say there's a lot of things that if you're rolling with the ego, there's a lot of shit that can go sideways on you. One of the biggest things I would think is it's going to stunt your growth. Yeah. It's going to stunt your growth, and I think the reason a lot of people quit jiu-jitsu is because of that ego. I've seen it time and time again through my jiu-jitsu career. Some big strong dude comes in, thinks he's pretty tough on the street or whatever, and some tiny little 150-pound dude wraps him up like a pretzel, and it doesn't sit well with him, and he never comes back. Yeah, and that's the ego talking. That's all that is. Yeah, and then that's affecting a brand new guy quitting. As you progress, not trying new things. It'll stunt your growth.
Yeah, man.
You just got to learn to recognize the signs of it in different ways. Feeling sorry for yourself, finding excuses as to why you think you suck. Once you see that shit pop up, you just gotta squash it.
Yeah. I know it sounds funny, like saying like feeling sorry for yourself is part of the ego, but it is, and I think we talked about that quite a bit on the Blue Belt Blues one. That's one of the things that starts to manifest itself at Blue Belt is you start hitting these plateaus or problems, and so the ego starts to look outside of you. For why are you running into these problems? And it's easy for the ego to find excuses and reasons for why you're running into these problems. Coaches and coaching me right, or my teammates or whatever, and then that leads to you starting to, kind of feel sorry for yourself and not being as into training, and the whole mindset behind training changes. But yeah, it all goes back to that ego, and really, I guess that's kind of a good point. Like anytime you're looking outside of yourself for validation or the reason that something is happening to you, that's pretty much the ego talking to you, right? Like if you're looking outside yourself, like if you have to win every match that you get into, and or you know that's your ego talking to you. You know, if you're looking outside, you know, validation from like competition results or the belt promotions or any of these external things, or like we were talking about just a minute ago, looking for excuses for why things are happening to you. So anything that has you looking outside of you is pretty much your ego talking to you in one form or another. And if you don't recognize it, you don't realize, man, everybody has it. Everybody goes through it. And then you just got to recognize it when it's happening and flip the script.
And if you don't recognize it, your ego is running your show.
Yeah.
That's the big problem.
Yeah.
In the gym, out of the gym, you just have to learn to recognize those signs and not let it lead you around.
Yeah.
Dude, it's easier said than done.
Dude, Z today, that kid, some of the questions he asked are interesting. Because again, my little boy's 5 years old. And he asked me today, he's like, Daddy, he's like, what controls me? He's like, my bones don't control me. What controls me? And he's like, oh yeah, my brain controls me. I was like, yeah, that's right. Your brain controls your muscles, and your muscles move your bones, and that's how you move. And then he's like, I don't understand how my brain knows what I need to think or what to think or something like that. And I was like, well, your brain kind of comes, I told him it was like a computer that comes with these programs on it. And so the brain runs these programs. But I was like, not all the programs are good programs, though. And that's the problem. Like, sometimes one of the programs tells you to get angry because you're being told to do something, or you get disrespectful. And the program's telling you this because it's saying, like, well, I shouldn't have to do this, or I don't want to do it. And I was like, that's what gets you in trouble. I was like, what you need to do is you got to figure out how to change the program. You got to change the thing you're telling yourself, and that'll change how your brain's seeing it. And I'm having this fucking discussion with my 5-year-old.
That's such a deep conversation to have with a 5-year-old.
Trying to like keep it. I even told him at one point, like, dude, this is getting a little deep. Like, I understand. So
it's so awesome.
But yeah, he was like, oh yeah, I'm kind of hanging on. But that's the thing, though, is he's 5 years old and asking these questions. But like a lot of people go through their whole lives and never ask that question. Like, wait a minute, how does my brain know to tell me to be upset right now? Like, how, what? And, does that make, and okay, now does that make sense in this, and so it leads to this whole line of questioning that is what ultimately puts you in control of your life, because you can change, your ego's fucking with you, man, you got to recognize it, and you can change the script, you can change the words in your head, but only if you recognize it and you don't let it get in front of you, or get a hold of you there. So yeah, just remember, man, jiu-jitsu is about learning and self-development more than just winning and promotions and shit like that. So I think that's good.
Yeah, that's a good way to end it right there. Like, jiu-jitsu is just a journey of self-discovery and development, because you learn so much about yourself in shitty situations. Tired, getting beat up, losing, winning, making new friends, losing friends. Like, all the life lessons take place on the mat in a great space.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Dude, we love jiu-jitsu, man.
I love jiu-jitsu. Yeah.
It's so awesome.
It is, dude. Yeah. All right. So, there's number one. Don't roll with an ego, folks.
Yep.
Number two.
Hurting your training partners.
Ooh, yeah. That's a big one. You want to
I'll go first. Learning. So, our little note talks about the volume knob. What we mean by that is knowing when and how hard to go, depending on who you're training with, what you're trying to accomplish. Because if you're the guy or gal that doesn't have a volume knob, that just has an on and off switch.
Yeah.
So once you slap hands and you roll,
or even drilling, it's
drilling.
Yeah.
You're gonna break all your toys, and no one's gonna want to play with you anymore.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is you're gonna hurt all your training partners, and everybody knows that the risk of getting injured training with you or even drilling with you is very high. So you're gonna find yourself, when it comes time for open mat and everybody's sparring, you're going to find yourself having a hard time finding somebody to train with. That's a first sign that you are probably not adjusting your volume properly. So, because we've talked about this before, and I've had people ask me about that. I think that's a really good way to figure out whether you're doing it good or not.
Yeah.
Is when it comes time and everybody's picking somebody to roll with, if no one's coming to you pretty readily, that's probably a good sign that you're being aggressive or being a dick without any end result in mind.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay to be aggressive and it's okay to train hard, but you got to be intelligent enough and sparse it, intelligently, so you're not just killing everybody.
Yeah.
Hurting people. Just no one's gonna want to train with you.
No.
Or when you're drilling with your partner, and you know what they're going to drill, so you can obviously shut it down super easy. That's not helping your partner at all. You gotta chill out, back off, give a little bit of resistance. You don't want to be a limp noodle, but you don't want to just shut it down. So there's another little kind of control of it.
Yeah, that volume knob, man, is such an important concept on so many levels. And that's another reason, like, doing the ramping isometrics is so important for you as a jiu-jitsu athlete, because a lot of people, man, when first time you explain ramping isometrics to people, you can see the look in their eye like, what the fuck is 50%? What's 80%? You know what I mean? So it's like, well, if you don't understand here, how can you understand it when you're rolling? And so, just not having that body awareness and the body control to adjust that volume knob. And it was good. I think, Steve Maxwell, we talked about this, but he kind of really solidified it when he talked about, like, jiu-jitsu. Good jiu-jitsu is going to take place when you're rolling at 60 to 80% of your strength. Like, 100% is not a technique. If you find yourself at 100% strength, you're relying on something other than technique to get yourself out of a bad situation. And again, when you're competing, if there's something on the line, that's great. But like, we were saying earlier, like, jiu-jitsu is about learning, right? And so if you're just like going to 100% or you're rolling, always at 100% so that nothing bad ever happens to you, like, man, you're never going to learn. So yeah, the idea of when you're drilling, like being in that, 40 to 50% range max, whether you're being the person drilling the stuff or you're resisting it. Like you're saying, maybe somebody asked you for a little bit more resistance, but really you should be in that like 40 to 50% range for them. And then when you're rolling and training, should be in that 60 to 80% range. And man, if you find yourself going up to 100 on a regular basis, you got to check your ego. Going back to 1, because why are you doing that? And 9 times out of 10, it's some sort of ego thing, whether it's conscious or subconscious. But I've had this talk with a couple people, and I told them the exact same thing that you said, that people will start self-selecting you out of training, because if you get a reputation as someone who's wild, and that's the other thing, like, you run into like people who are super athletic and they're like doing fucking somersaults and cartwheels and crazy shit, and they don't even know what they're doing, right? That'll get your training partner hurt. So it's not always necessarily just like going beast mode and just like going to 100%. Man, doing weird shit that you don't even know what you're doing or has no, you've never been taught it. You're just kind of like trying to get the hell out of some position. Like, man, that's how you get yourself hurt. That's how you get your training partners hurt. And you start getting that reputation. And yeah, that's so true. Like, people start self-selecting. Again, consciously or unconsciously, it's basically, again, going back to the Jordan Peterson thing. In the kids, you're reading the kids section where he's like, don't let your kids do shit. And the reason is, and he talks about it, is like, if your kids don't learn how to socialize properly, it will affect their lives down the line. Because they're going to reach the point where their peers are going to start self-selecting who they hang out with. And the kids that haven't learned to socialize properly, they're just going to naturally get left out. And they're not going to get the same opportunities and the same friendships and the same doors open to them as someone who has learned how to socialize properly. And man, jiu-jitsu, there is a social structure. There is a social etiquette. And if you don't learn to socialize properly, and a big part of that is not fucking hurting your training partners, you're going to get self-selected out of the system. So, yeah.
Well, another way to just add to that, you said it basically, is 100% is not a technique. And a way to think about that is like, let's say you're going for a sweep and it's not working. Generally, the answer isn't putting more heat on it and just going turbo destructo to get it. We teach jiu-jitsu, like, you don't have to be a big, strong, physical specimen to make jiu-jitsu work. It's not meant for that. It was designed for the little guy. You know, look at Helio Gracie. I mean, the guy was not a physical specimen in any way, shape, or form. And so just keep it. And then on the other side, if you're trying to get out of a submission, if your last resort is to beast mode out of it, that's where people get hurt. You or your training partner.
Yeah.
Just tap. Just tap and start again. That's the beauty of training.
Yep.
Nothing's on the line except for your well-being and your partner's well-being, and your partner will respect that. And then once you build trust among your training partners, then you can train harder with each other.
Yeah.
Because you trust each other. You know, I mean, when you're training hard, things are going to happen. People are going to get dinged up. But like, you and I really trust each other. We can go at each other, and it's great.
Yeah.
And but that is a relationship and a friendship that you have to build over time.
Yeah.
And you will never get there if you're just the dude who has an on and off switch.
Yep.
And no one likes training with you.
Yeah,
so
man. Yeah.
You got to be mindful of it. It's a journey.
It is.
And so and the better you get friends with people, and the better you trust each other, the harder you can train with each other, and that makes you better.
Yeah.
So you can't just find somebody you don't know and just try to murder them. You got to lay down the foundation first, and like, oh, this guy's cool. Now he can try to murder me.
Yeah.
And so it's
I mean,
it's a funny thing.
I
mean, there's probably, I don't know of any other activity, sport that's really like that.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique sport, man. I mean, I know, like, going to other gyms, dude, if I'm rolling with someone, like, I'm not going beast mode destructo or trying to prove anything, or like, I'm trying to deliver the message that, like, I'm a safe training partner. I don't have an ego here. We can train hard, and no one's, you don't got to worry about anything. And yeah, I mean, those are the guys too. Like, you don't have to worry about getting the settle down rowdy fucking bullshit. Again, if you're getting a bunch of knees to the eye when people are in side control, or, that's the other thing, man. Like, you will get not so subtle messages sometimes from more experienced training partners that you need to settle down. And so again, if you feel like you're getting, like, physically beat up, again, maybe train with assholes, but I'm assuming you're not. Like, for the most part, jiu-jitsu has a way of scrubbing out the assholes. So yeah, if you're catching some beat downs, you may want to check, like, what am I doing to deserve this? Especially if you don't notice everybody else getting the same beat down that you're getting, kind of thing. So
I have to ask myself that frequently.
What did I do?
I think I bring many of the beatings I receive upon myself. It's all good though.
It's all right, man.
I've been in the game long enough.
Yeah,
it's all good.
We don't need excuses. We just, like, jump on them when we see them more than anything.
That's right.
So, all right.
Number 3, trying to collect techniques.
Yeah, that's one thing we emphasize a lot, and we had a whole fucking episode on it, is principles. I mean, really, if you can sum up that and the advice for that in one thing is, like, remember that jiu-jitsu, the techniques are not jiu-jitsu. They're the window into the principles that are jiu-jitsu. And it's those principles. It's the matrix that you want to see. And so the techniques, just being, getting on YouTube and collecting a bunch of different techniques is not what's going to make you a good jiu-jitsu player later on. I mean, dude, it's funny. I mean, I feel like some of my best jiu-jitsu is like, how the fuck did that happen? Like, that wasn't a move or anything that I've necessarily been shown. Maybe it's like some loose variation on it, but it's that ability to apply the principles in the moment that really make jiu-jitsu fun, not trying to have a catalog of techniques. And I guess kind of my last bit of advice is another thing that I joke around with the classes that I teach, is that I only know, like, 10 things. I just relate everything back to those 10 things. And so trying to collect 1,000 different techniques is a different mindset than looking at 1,000 different ways to apply the same principle. And so, I think it's hard early on because it doesn't make sense. It takes some faith in the process to start to understand what this means. Because at first you're going to be like, I need to get out of mount. Okay, well, let me show you a bridge and an elbow knee escape. So there's 2 techniques. And so it does kind of you start out collecting techniques because that's the only way to start. But if you don't quickly realize that it's more than just collecting techniques, you can get lost pretty quickly. So
I will build on that. I think in the beginning when you are a white belt, you are kind of collecting techniques.
Yeah, you have to.
You have to. Just because you don't know, man.
Yeah.
You don't know you're asking a hole in the ground.
Yep.
You just don't know.
No.
And that's understandable. So you are collecting, like, okay, I get somebody in my closed guard, I go for an arm bar and a triangle. I got to get out of mount, I do this and this. Where this gets you into trouble is usually like blue belt stage. Because it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun going to YouTube or watching these super high level guys. And, that looks cool. Let's try worm guard. Let's try X guard. Let's try daily Hiva guard. It's fun. You have to do a little bit of it just to find what's going to fit you. But you can't you're not just going to add a million techniques to your repertoire and be efficient at them. A really good example of that is watch any really high level competitor and just watch their highlight reels or just find a bunch of their matches online. They do the same shit over and over and over to every opponent. Like one guy we talk about all the time is Pimenta, Danielson Pimenta. His jiu-jitsu is not flashy, it's not fancy, and he murders fools. He hits a takedown, gets to mount, cross choke, shoulder lock, arm bar. You know what I mean? It's not.
It's
There's
simple.
It's very just like Hodger Gracie. Same thing. Very old school. Pass, smash, mount, choke. Beautiful. They're not collecting. They don't have 1,000 techniques.
No.
So if those guys at the highest level you don't see them doing a million different techniques. Every match they win, it's something different. There's something to that.
Yeah.
So just.
Yeah, that's the other thing that collecting techniques, that's a good point, is it can take your focus off of the basics. Mm-hmm. And really the basics, like, that's what's going to serve you from white belt all the way, to black belt. So, yeah, I mean, like you said, it's easy to go. You find, like, some new little thing that nobody at your gym knows about. Because, that's the other thing, man. I think some people get into the YouTube stuff because they're looking for the parlor tricks. And the thing that like, nobody in my gym knows this one. I'll be able to have a couple weeks of hitting this on people. People figure it out. Like, we've talked about before, like if somebody's got good fundamental principles and basics, man, you can throw some fancy shit that they haven't seen before. And, man, you may get them once, but you ain't going to get them twice. They'll figure that out real quick, and they will fucking shut it down and smash you. And then what do you got? Where, I got no fancy thing to back that up. So, there's a lot of dangers with that. I've mentioned this before. I purposefully stayed away from YouTube, and, man, I think Stephen Kesting with grapplearts.com, he does a really good job. He's got a couple good instructionals. So I invested in, I think, like one of his when I was a white belt, but it was like my thing was like I just need to focus on what my coach is telling me. Like I can barely keep that fucking straight. The last thing that I need to do is start adding more to the system. And so when you're a white belt, man, you need that period of unfreedom. Just stay away from all that stuff. If you have a question, ask someone at your gym. Don't ask fucking Google or YouTube. Ask your coach if you're having a problem or you think you need a different technique for a different situation. But once you start getting into that blue belt, beyond purple belt, you're getting into that unfreedom stage. That's where some of the stuff can come in. But again, by that point, you have the mental framework, the principles to filter stuff through. So it's just different. Like, you watching YouTube videos is just a different thing than some white belt who's only been training for 3 months watching YouTube videos. So, anyways, gotta watch that one for sure.
Cool. Number 4. Focusing on promotions and or competition results. Am I going first on this one?
I don't know, man. Yeah, I think
Sure.
so. You got the evens. I got the odds.
Is that what it is?
I think so.
You are not individual.
I am, man.
So focusing on promotions and competition results. Basically, that's focusing on things outside of your control.
Yeah.
You don't have 100% control of either one of those things. And that applies in jiu-jitsu and in life outside of the jiu-jitsu. You can't stress about the outcome. All you can do is put in the work and be happy with that. Put in the work hard. The results will speak for themselves. I think it's really as simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah. Focusing on the process versus the outcome.
Yep.
And so, yeah, if you're focused on that outcome, man, it can be very frustrating because you don't necessarily control all of those things. So, yeah, focusing on the process. And, too, I don't remember if we talked about it in a previous episode or it was on this one that we scrapped, but, this isn't like, old school martial arts where, as you advance the ranks, there was like, ooh, here's secret techniques that are only available to this, level person. Like, man, there ain't no secrets in jiu-jitsu.
Nope.
It's all there. White belt has access to the same information, the same techniques, the same stuff that a black belt does. So, man, that belt doesn't do shit. It doesn't give you access to anything else. It doesn't affect your jiu-jitsu journey in the slightest. So like focusing on that is really, I don't even know, man. Your aim is off, and that's going to affect what you see.
We talked a lot about this in Blue Belt Blues.
Yeah.
That's where because that was the episode that just came out today, right? Or this week?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't worry about that, man, because you will just get discouraged. You got to trust the process. It's a journey. Just keep marching forward.
Yeah.
And it'll come. And then it feels so good when it comes. It's an accomplishment. But you can't worry about it. Yeah,
No.
But like you said, each time I got a new belt, I hope there was some magic power that came along with it. And I hate to tell you, I made it to black, and there's not.
There's not.
Yeah, and I can wear my black belt to the grocery store, and I'm not getting free fucking groceries, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My boss doesn't care about that. He needs me to shut up, show up, and do my job. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, man. No, I think that's important.
And another big thing, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Something that helps me, because competition results,
Yeah.
they're important.
Yeah.
Because we're all competitive. We like to do good. We like to win, of course. But when you step on the mat, there's only two guys. One of you winning, one of you losing. It's as simple as that. I strip it down to when I'm wrestling with somebody, I look at it. It's just a series of decisions. My opponent, my partner, is presenting me with a series of choices, and I am attempting just to make the best choice in each scenario. And that's it. I make this choice. Cool, that was my good choice. What's my next choice? And that's it. So as long as you're making the best choice every time you have to make one, shit'll pan out.
Yeah.
And you don't always make the best choice.
No. But then you learn from that.
You learn, like, oh, shit, that wasn't good.
That didn't work. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then you're on to the next decision.
Yeah.
So that helps me. I don't know where I got that from or why I started doing it, but
Yeah.
it helps me.
Yeah. No, focusing on the moment instead of looking at the big picture it keeps it more, God, I remember somebody was talking about when he was boxing and his coach, he was boxing this dude who was had this reputation as a killer, or maybe he's doing taekwondo, whatever. And his coach was like, man, he had 3 rounds scheduled, and he's like, man, you think you can get through one round? Just one round. He's like, I don't know, coach. He's like, how about a minute? You go out there and just last a minute with this guy? Think you can last just a minute, He's like, I don't know, maybe a little closer. How about 30 seconds? Can you go out there and just give me 30 seconds? Just don't get knocked out for 30 seconds. And it's like, yeah, I can do that. Okay, well, let's just start with that. And it's kind of the same thing. It's like, if you look at the totality of it, you can really lose sight of man, it's these moment to moment things. So, and that's where you're learning, right? And so that's why competition, focusing on the results can get you, because then you're just looking at that total outcome and see the good or bad, and you can't really nuance it, and that's where people get lost. But yeah, man, it's
a tough thing.
It is, man,
because that takes you right back to number 2 or number 1 with the ego.
Yeah,
that's why we put that one number 1.
Yeah, it is, man. So yeah, you got to watch the focusing on that external stuff for sure.
Cool. Number 5, dividing your BJJ and other life.
Yeah, this is we say all the time, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So the big mistake that people make is as soon as they walk out the door of the gym, like things are different, so they're not looking at themselves as jiu-jitsu athletes or grapplers or, warriors or whatever you want to call it, outside of the gym. And so this is why, they don't eat well. They don't take the time to do the nutrition or the mobility and the strength training. And so, but these little things, man, I mean, we talk about all the time. We run everything through the jiu-jitsu filter. I mean, what I eat is run through how's this going to affect my jiu-jitsu, all of that stuff. And so, but yeah, you can't separate the two things because you only spend, I tell people all the time with working out, and you've probably heard this too. It's like, dude, how long do you spend training? 3-4 hours a week, maybe a little bit more if you're lucky. How many hours are you not here? Like fucking 160 some odd or whatever it is. And so, or per week. And which one do you think is going to have the bigger impact on your results? Well, it's that bigger time. So again, if you're not seeing the results that you're wanting from your training, man, a lot of times look at what you're doing off the mat, and if you're doing the things that you need to help. But yeah, that's a huge mistake.
Yeah, it goes back to, the old bodybuilding saying, the abs aren't built in the gym, they're built in the kitchen.
Right.
It's the same thing. It really is. For me, working out, in this case, jiu-jitsu, that's the fun part. I could do that. Dude, if I could do that, I say if I could do it 8 hours a day, I would. Obviously, your body's not going to take it. But I love it. But like you said, is how many, if you're lucky, you're training, 5 hours a week, 6 hours a week. There's so many other hours filled. Are you sleeping enough?
Yeah.
That's a big one. What are you eating? Are you staying hydrated? Are you working on your mobility, your strength? All these things affect when you go train. And there's a lot of choices to be made. It goes back to what I was talking about the other one. Are you making the right choice in that moment?
Yeah. Yeah, man. If you're going to... Jiu-jitsu is a lifestyle. Yep. I mean, it's cliche, but again, we say cliches are cliches because they're true generally. And yeah, if you're not living the jiu-jitsu lifestyle, then you're going to have a real tough time sticking jiu-jitsu out. I mean, God, I don't know, like too many people. Like people do better jobs than other people. Like, I look at like you and Kevin, right? Like you and Kevin, you guys both, you're kind of at a different level. You're at a different level than me. That's like I said, like why I keep you around. You're my David Goggins or whatever, right? And, and Kevin doesn't quite put the same amount of, time, effort, and thought into it that you do, but he still does. You know what I mean? So there's a spectrum of it. And I've yet to meet anyone like, fuck, man, like really like purple belt or above who doesn't fall on that spectrum somewhere, who's not living the jiu-jitsu lifestyle and running their decisions and the things that they do outside of the gym through that filter of, how is this going to affect my jiu-jitsu? And so, yeah, I would say like just kind of looking at that, it would tell me that that's critical. That if you can't figure that out, you're not going to last. So if you are getting into this and you plan on seeing this to the end, you have to get that squared away. I mean, dude, we've seen it so many times. Like how many fucking, think of a couple people off the top of my head that it's like they had that separation, and so they let their outside life start to affect their ability to do jiu-jitsu to the point that it starts to pull them away from jiu-jitsu. Because like once if you haven't figured it out by like purple belt, it really starts to like get tough, man. It starts to weigh heavily on all the things that you do in the gym. So yeah, if you don't get it figured out, you aren't gonna make it, I would say.
Yeah, I like it. Something else on the same note too is, yeah, jiu-jitsu is a lifestyle, and if it's really important to you, you're gonna find time to train. And I understand none of us, or I'm assuming nobody listening is professional athletes and getting to jiu-jitsu all the time. And so if your wife or your husband doesn't train and you like to spend a lot of time in the gym, you got to have good communication with them. You got to, like, come Sunday night, look at your schedule, like, hey, I would like to train this day, and this day. What do you have going on? Are we going to spend time together? That you have to put some, because your outside life and your jiu-jitsu life are a little bit separate there.
Yeah.
So you have to be responsible and take the mature route of using that communication. Like, hey, I would
being proactive about
being
it.
proactive. Like, it's important to me. I want to go train. These are the days I would like to train. Do you have plans for us? That way it doesn't become a point of contention between you and your wife or husband if they don't train.
Yep.
I've seen that screw up a lot of people.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. Yeah, got to be proactive with that, and but yeah, getting that outside life balanced with your jiu-jitsu life is critical. So
the jiu-jitsu filter, I run everything through it. When I want to pick up a new hobby, because we live in a beautiful place here in Colorado.
Yeah.
There is any sort of badass hobby you want to take up, we have access to it. And kayaking, rafting, paddleboarding, mountain climbing, skiing, like everything. And it all depends on how much time and money you want to invest doing it. And whenever I think about that, because I'm always wanting to do, oh, that looks fun, let's do that. Oh, that looks fun. Oh shit, that's going to take away from jiu-jitsu. I'm going to have to spend quite a bit of time and money to get halfway decent at that. Do I want to do that? And I'm like, oh, pump the brakes on that. Let me just play disc golf.
Yeah, disc golf, that's it, man.
I can spend $40, buy a bunch of discs, and that's it.
That's yeah. No, yeah, man. No, I totally agree. So
cool.
Yeah.
All right, and on to the next one, number 6. Not respecting the importance of mobility and strength training. Man, I think we kind of hammered that at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
With our little pre-show notes.
I think we got into it for sure. It's just that, couple concepts that kind of underpin that, which is that any sport, any activity is going to preferentially use certain ranges of motion, certain muscles, and this is going to start to create imbalances in the body. And so that's probably the number one reason. I've talked about it before. Like, one of the big aha moments for me with strength and conditioning was when somebody presented the question, what's the most important role of a strength and conditioning program or a strength coach? Is it performance enhancement or injury prevention? And it's like, well, it's injury prevention, because if you're hurt, it doesn't matter how fit you are. And injury prevention from a strength and conditioning program comes from almost doing the opposite of what you do in your sport. So making sure you're working ranges of motion, making sure that you're working movement patterns, doing things, like, for example, I love jiu-jitsu, but man, there's not a whole lot of running and jumping and throwing going on. And so, hanging, they're just basic movement skills that you need to maintain, that if you don't, will start to affect your jiu-jitsu. Like, that's the double-edged sword there is, the more time you spend doing jiu-jitsu, the better you get at jiu-jitsu, but these other things start to erode, and eventually they erode to the point that it starts to affect your ability to continue to progress in jiu-jitsu. So, there's just, some important concepts for people to keep in mind when they're thinking about their strength and mobility programs and why it's important. And the mobility is super important for decreasing tension, right? Like, you're putting so much tension into the system all the time with jiu-jitsu, you got to have things to take that tension out of the system. And so if you're not stretching, you're not doing some mobility work, it's just a matter of time until you're going to blow up. So again, if you want to remain injury resistant and consistent with your training, because again, we talked about it in the Blue Belt Blues, man. Like, that's the bane of the Blue Belt, is getting injured and then having to take time off and then not getting back into it. And so, that's what's going to keep you from getting injured.
And another way I always say it is my outside training is I use to try to armor myself.
Yeah.
To protect me during jiu-jitsu, because you're going to get dinged up. Obviously, we talked about my knee. Shit's going to happen. Everything I do outside of the gym is to try to minimize that and make me feel strong and good and healthy, keep me on the mat.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to armor myself. An example of that, another thing you touched on, was there's a lot of things that happen in jiu-jitsu that aren't necessarily great for mobility or certain things. And one example of that is you see a lot of jiu-jitsu guys with shitty posture.
Yeah,
that rounded shoulders, the rounded shoulders forward, and then the shoulders up by the ears.
Yep.
It's a very common position for us. And so, if you should have something in your training program where you're working on pulling those shoulder blades down and back. I mean, my posture's not great, but I try to do a lot of stuff.
Better than it would be if you weren't.
Yeah, with the ramping isometrics, I focus on our Indian club type stuff.
Yeah.
I do a lot of that to counteract these things that might be jacking up.
Yeah.
While training. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that as an athlete, like for us, man, that posture has benefits specific to grappling. So you don't want to. It's not necessarily getting rid of all of it. Like being perfectly balanced isn't necessarily the goal. The goal is to remain healthy, and so trying to maintain a healthy imbalance, which sounds like kind of an oxymoron, but that's really the goal. Is as a jiu-jitsu athlete, is you're trying to keep the imbalance as healthy as possible through your strength and mobility work. And if you're not, man, it's just going to go so far in the bad direction so often that you're just going to be constantly fighting injuries, constantly fighting, having to take time off to address stuff. And then, man, if your training's not consistent, like that's the number one thing. Like being consistent with your training is huge. Like if you're having to take time off on a consistent basis, you're going to really struggle to see consistent progressions because you're always starting over again. So, it's huge.
Cool. Next one, number 7. Getting frustrated at a lack of progress.
Yeah, this is another one. It ties back into the ego thing. That there's going to be ups and downs with your jiu-jitsu, and getting frustrated. Again, it's an emotion, right? So it's not good or bad. It's what do you do with that emotion? And so you get frustrated because you care. And so what do you do with that energy, that direction? And so do you get frustrated and then channel all of that into looking inside yourself to figure out what you're doing wrong and how you can find the solution to the problem? Or do you start going outside yourself and saying like, well, my coach isn't teaching me the right stuff or showing me enough attention, or my training partners aren't good, or whatever it is. And so that's when the frustration turns toxic and you end up quitting. But yeah, it's just another manifestation of the ego fucking with you.
Yeah, I think it's important to realize and to remember that jiu-jitsu, it's a journey. We say that time and time again, but it's a journey with no end result. There's no peak of the mountain. There's no finish line.
No.
That's it.
That's it.
And you're going to have peaks and valleys along the ways. You're going to have highs. You're going to have lows. You're going to have times where you're thinking you're the next jiu-jitsu world champion. And you're going to have times of thinking, like, God damn it, I suck. Why am I doing this? Every time you get into that, damn it, I suck, why am I doing this? There's light on the other side. You just have to trust in the journey and the process.
Trust the process, yeah.
And just keep showing up, keep training. And the more you show up and train when you're in those little valleys, the faster you'll come out of that valley. And it's hard because when you're in those low spots, you will find some bitch-ass excuses to stay at home instead of show up to practice.
Yeah.
Because you're frustrated already. You're like, oh shit, I need to mow the lawn. Or, oh, I need to get ready for this. Or you'll come up with a million excuses to why you shouldn't come train. That's not going to get you through the little darkness that you're experiencing.
No, man. That's when you almost kind of got to double down.
You got to double down a little bit. You got to show up and train.
Yeah, it's the basics are what are going to get you through that. Are you keeping a notebook? Right? If you're not keeping a notebook, start right there. That'll help cure a lot of frustration. Or are you drilling? There's a lot of things. Again, that's where looking at yourself first, though. Are you taking advantages of these low-hanging fruits? And if you're not, well, then jump on that. I think too, just something it just kind of popped into my head. I think it helps too to kind of identify what kind of frustration, what's the source of your frustration, right? So is it kind of a mystery? Just the same thing keeps happening to you over and over again, or you keep getting caught with the same thing. You don't really know why and what's going on, or you're getting frustrated because, again, I'm just thinking about myself, right? Like I'm trying to get away from this one thing and start working on incorporating another thing in. Well, guess what? It gets frustrating. I get past and then bad things happen to me. And so, but just, recognizing there are kind of two different frustrations that can pop up. And, one, if you're doing it on purpose, like that's where you've just got to you got to that's just part of the process. Realize it's part of the process and you're going to go through it. The other one is, man, maybe you need to ask for some help. Maybe you need to talk to people. If you don't really know what's going on and you don't have an answer to the problem and you're getting frustrated over it, then talk to people. Talk to some of the higher belts and see if you can get some advice on it. Because I guarantee you, they've gone through it before too. Someone in the gym has gone through the same frustration, the same thing, getting caught in the same thing, feeling like they're just not progressing or whatever. So make use of the resources that you have. But man, if you're purposely trying to do something and you're getting frustrated because you're getting shut down, like again, that's easy for me. Like I'll just go back to my A game because I got to feel good about myself. But so anyways, yeah, it's just kind of the same thing, but a little bit different. So cool.
Good with that.
Yeah.
Number 8. Ignoring injuries.
Ooh, Rob, that's a good one for you.
That's a good one. Good thing I landed on that one. The little note says, if it doesn't go away within 2 weeks, then you need to take some time off. You're going to get dinged up. I say it 1,000 times. I'm going to say it again. Jiu-jitsu is a rough sport. We're not out there playing patty cake. Shit's going to happen. You have to understand, are you just hurt or are you legitimately injured? Some things you can work around and you can still stay on the mat, but you have to be disciplined enough. You might be injured, but you might be able to show up and drill and do class. But when it comes time to wrestle, you probably shouldn't. If you're hurting something, like live rolling is not going to do you any good. Because you may be favoring something, like say you hurt your knee. So you're going to favor that. And it's going to expose other parts of your body to be getting injured. Or you're going to re-injure that thing. And it's just going to set you back even further. So you just got to take the time off the mat. It's tough.
It is tough.
Dude, it sucks because jiu-jitsu is so much fun.
It is. I mean, I talked before about I'm like the worst person for this because I had that fucking groin injury last year that I probably suffered through for like 6 months because I just wouldn't admit to myself that it's an injury, and I would try to make excuses and I'd change my jiu-jitsu around to try to compensate for it. So with that, just a couple of things to add on to that. There's two really important reasons that it's important that you don't ignore injuries, and the first one is in injury rehab they have this thing called the rule of halves, which means that roughly says that however long you've had an injury, it'll take you about half that long to rehab it and get it back up to speed. And so if you've had an injury for 4 weeks before you finally go and get it addressed, probably take a couple weeks off, you'll be good. If you ignored it for 6 months, man, you're really like rolling the dice there. Like it could take you several months to get back up to speed to 100%. Like I know with me with the groin injury, like I was able to get back to training and rolling after like 3 to 4 weeks of off, but I still had to watch it. Like I wasn't back to 100% for a couple months, and so the sooner that you just address the injury, you take the time off that you need, the faster you're gonna get better. And the longer you ignore it, by the time you finally have to pay the piper, the larger the bill's going to be and the longer it's going to take. So that's one reason right there. The other reason, again, going back to the brain, your brain knows that you're injured. Your brain will start to develop compensatory movement patterns. It's one of my fancy words I throw out there to make myself sound smart every once in a while. What this basically means is your body's going to start moving differently. It's going to compensate for that injury. And so you're going to start developing bad movement habits. You're going to start putting extra stress, like you were saying, extra stress on other joints in different unnatural ways because your body's trying to protect and move differently to protect this injury. And even if you don't, it's not a conscious thing, it's the subconscious thing. You can't control it. Your brain is doing it without you even realizing it. And so, yeah, man, if you ignore the injuries, it's just going to take you longer, and you're going to end up having to, maybe having to relearn how to move properly again to make up. It's like, dude, why are you doing that? Why are you moving like that? And it's like, oh, I just kind of developed this habit to protect my lower back or protect my groin or whatever it is. And it's like, well, fuck, now you got to unlearn it. So yeah, man, don't ignore the injuries. I'm the worst. I'm like, do as I say, not as I do, for sure. But man, if you can be smart enough, take the time off, man. Let yourself heal. Don't ignore those injuries.
Yep, I agree. Just like you said, the longer you ignore it, it's just going to get worse and worse. And then when it comes time to where you are forced off the mat, now you're forced off the mat for a big chunk.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. So you just see that cycle, man. It starts as like the low back or the knee is a real good example. Like, just starts out hurting a little bit every once in a while. I don't really need to do anything. That's the point where you don't want to ignore it. That's the point where you're like, dude, I need to start doing mobility and strength training, right? Like that's that. But people just ignore it, and then it starts to be more consistent. And then they're having to take pop an ibuprofen after training. Then they're having to pop one before training to get through training. And then they're at the doctor and they're getting a cortisone shot to get them through training. And then they're scheduling surgery. I mean, that little cycle right there, it's a fucking cliche in the sports training world, because that's how the Western medical establishment kind of addresses the injuries. Is they want to help you ignore them. They want to give you something to dull the pain. It's basically, I've heard it described before, like that's like the smoke alarm's going off in your house and you decide to pull the batteries out to address it. It's like, no, there's a fucking fire going on here, guys. You just turn the alarm off. So like, man, when you're taking painkillers, even like ibuprofen, or you're taking a cortisone shot, that is just pulling the batteries out of your smoke detector, man. That is not helping you at all. Like, a doctor who is offering you a stronger ibuprofen or giving you a cortisone shot, that motherfucker is not your friend. And so, but yeah, that's it's in today's society, it's kind of easy to ignore the injuries because you got, braces and painkillers and doctors who are willing to help you out. And so, but yeah, man, but that's the problem. You ignore it to that point, fucking surgery, man. Like when at the very beginning, all you need to do is start doing some stretching and ramping isometrics. That's all you needed at the beginning. If you would have not ignored it in the beginning, you could have got away with that. But you ignore it for several months, years, whatever. Well, there's where you fucking end up, man. So yeah, I've just seen it so many times, dude, in the fitness training and working with athletes and stuff, that it's really kind of sad how many people just, man, you could have not had to suffer through this. And you only get this body, you only get one body. Like, that's the other thing too, man. Like, one day you will be 60 years old. One day you will be 70 years old, hopefully, and I fucking hope I can still do jiu-jitsu. I plan on being able to run around and do things. And man, if my lower back is blown out because I ignored it and just let it go to hell, or my knee or whatever it is, like, man, you got to think about the long game too. So anyways, I don't know, another little rant on that, but
rant away.
No, man.
That's this podcast, me getting you fired up and letting you just...
I know it is, dude.
It's all good. Okay. Number 9. Not recognizing that your biggest strength can become your biggest weakness.
Yeah.
We see that play out time and time again. We're all suspect to it.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah. That's something I tell, like, all the new white belts, man, coming in, is that, that exact there, like, your biggest strength will become your biggest weakness. We all come into it with something. I mean, for me, it was grip strength and, like, just kind of good, good isometric strength and good leverage too. I just kind of, been able to put my elbows in the right spot. And so that was the birth of rigor mortis guard. It's like, so that, because that's my strength, right? So we're talking about, like, when I'm fatigued and my brain's like, dude, just, it's not even thinking, and it just goes to my strengths. But if you're not conscious of that, well, I won't let your jiu-jitsu develop. So, big guys got to watch, just using their strength all the time. Super flexible people got to watch letting the flexibility just get them out of situations. Super aggressive people got to watch.
That's me.
That's you, right? Because we talked about before, like you run into
when I get out aggressive.
Yeah. I think actually it was the last one that we tried to go. You asked, you're like, what is my strength? Because you're trying to figure out, like, man, what is my biggest strength? And I was saying, like, in my mind, like, your aggressiveness is your biggest strength. That, like, you can, you definitely can come and bring the heat hard, but then that's why, like, Kevin likes to fuck with you, likes to play that bully jiu-jitsu back at you and be like, all right, now what do you got, dude? But yeah, that's funny, man. That's right. We did talk about that. So yeah, we've all got it. We've all got to deal with it. But man, if you don't realize what your strength is and then use it wisely and make sure that it's not stunting your growth, because again,
it will stunt your growth.
Yeah, it will, man. Like your game will go to your strengths, and so there is something there. You don't want to ignore them. You definitely have strengths. But, like for you, like, Berimbolo game may not be like the best thing for you. It doesn't play into your strengths. And, but anyways, yeah, that's definitely a big lesson for people to learn, big mistake people make.
And it's not always easy to see what your own strength is. Like I had to ask you, like, how many years have I been doing this? And I still, like, and once you told me that, my bully jiu-jitsu and me being aggressive, it was my biggest crutch. It makes sense. I really started thinking about it. I was like, yeah, I think he's onto something. Yeah, when you first told me that, I'm like, fuck off. I really started thinking about it. I was like, yeah, I think you're right. And if you're like that example of me not really knowing what my biggest strength is, you will develop good friends training jiu-jitsu and ask somebody. And you and I friendship, like, we don't have a problem telling each other something that might kind of sting, but it's good for me to hear.
Yeah.
So you got to find that person that person you got a friendship with and ask them, like, hey, what do you think?
Or you can just get Coach Kevin to fucking...
Oh, Kevin will tell you.
Because he told you already, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
in his own way. He's like, oh, you play this bully jiu-jitsu and blah, blah, blah. So, like, and he's fucking rigor mortis guard. Like, he gives us names, man. For our strengths. But that's just it, though, is he gives them a name in a way that's like makes it, that turns into a fault. Like when I start playing bully jiu-jitsu or I start turning into rigor mortis guard, it's like I'm kind of playing into my strengths too much, kind of thing. So
I recognize it now, especially now that you've told me that. Like even today I was training with Kevin and I tried to beast on something, bully a little bit, and I made some progress with it. But then once the tables turned, dude, when he passed and he slammed that knee on belly, then he switched to like knee on the chest, dude. He was bringing that in with some heat. I was like, oh, you motherfucker. But I brought it upon myself, so it's all good.
Well, his coach told him to beat everybody up, so he's just doing what his coach told him to do.
I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb that in all of Kevin's years of being an athlete, being in jiu-jitsu, that is probably not the first time, but that is probably the lesson he has taken most to heart.
Oh my God.
He has listened to that so well. He has just been abusing the shit out of us, and it's good.
I would agree.
He heard that, and he's like, yes, we've all been greenlit by the higher up.
Yeah, I think it just gave him a different way of looking at it. Like, oh yeah, no, I do have enough guys to roll with the new people and not beat them up, where I can just focus on
beating people up,
beating up my higher ranks here. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, number 10, the last one on the list.
Last but not least,
letting life get in the way and quitting.
Yeah, I'm glad you got this one, because this was your speech, man, for when you got your black belt.
Yeah, it was.
That's
Don't
right.
quit.
Don't quit. That was the speech.
That was my speech. Thought long and hard about it. And my words of wisdom to everybody were, don't quit. There's so much good that comes from training jiu-jitsu. Like I said earlier in this podcast, there's so much self-discovery, and you learn about yourself, and you make good friendships, and God damn it, man. I could just give you a whole list of all the benefits. And if you make it to blue or purple and then you quit, man, you're throwing that away.
Yeah.
It's disappointing, because I'm losing good training partners and friends. And, yeah, there's so much good from it. there's no bad from it. It's a good physical activity. It's keeping you healthy, except for the injuries that are going to happen. It's keeping you healthy mentally. You're challenging yourself. You're learning. You're growing. You're surrounding yourself with people that are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, God damn it, there's just a list of great things. So you have to run things that you're doing through that jiu-jitsu filter to make sure it's not going to get in the way of your jiu-jitsu. Because it's making you a better person.
Yep.
Whether you think you might just be getting better at arm bars, but it's turning you into a better person.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think, the previous 9 things, this is the reason it's number 10, because if you're doing the previous 9 things, it will help this not happen, because a lot of times when people quit is because they're making one of the other mistakes. But the other thing that I think happens too, and I've seen this a lot, especially in the fitness field, is people just kind of start to take things for granted. They just kind of forget what it was like without it, and they think that their life is just going to be that way even when they remove it. And so, they just forget like how positive jiu-jitsu and all the positive things it's done for them. And it's just kind of like, whatever, I can skip training tonight and, I'll skip 2 sessions next week. And then you've taken like a month off. And the thing is you don't realize it at the time, but these other things that jiu-jitsu is doing for you, they start to slowly erode too. It's not this like light switch thing. It's not like you quit jiu-jitsu and all of a sudden it's like boom, the next day you're like, oh shit, like I'm thinking differently and my physical, just everything's different. It's this slow erosion. It's kind of like getting fat, man. Like I tell you, like nobody just wakes up one morning and they're fat. It was this slow thing, and all of a sudden they wake up one morning and they're like, holy shit, how did I get fat? And it's the same thing that's going to happen, man. You quit jiu-jitsu, you're going to get down the road and you're going to be like, holy shit, how did I get to this point mentally and physically? Like, what happened? I used to be so much better than this when I was doing jiu-jitsu. And so, yeah, it's like I joke around with people about working out. Like, I'm the strength coach who doesn't like to work out, right? If I could just ride my bike or do jiu-jitsu, like, that's what I would do. But what gets me back into the gym is if I start to slack off, I start to notice the effect that it has on me. But knowing that keeps me motivated to not start to slack off. And so, anyways, my point is I think like don't take jiu-jitsu for granted. Don't take what it's doing for you for granted and the positive effect that it's having on your life for granted. Because after you do it for a few years, it can be really easy to do that. And so as long as you're just like remaining mindful and thankful for what it's doing for you, it'll be a lot harder for you to quit. So yeah, and then dude, we know nothing's harder than trying to come back to jiu-jitsu. You got to get over your ego. You got to, there's just so many things. So the amount of people that have made it back into our gym compared to the number of people who have stopped coming, it's fucking infinitesimal. So yeah, if you quit, man, odds of you coming back in are not good. So yeah, don't quit.
Don't quit.
Don't quit.
I like how you said, don't take jiu-jitsu for granted. I think that's a perfect way to end this.
Yeah.
You like from the outside, or from the inside, you might not be seeing all the benefits it's giving you. It's teaching you to be a better problem solver.
Yeah.
It's teaching you how to, react under pressure. It's teaching you to deal with that ego, to keep yourself healthy. Like, it's teaching you all these, great lessons. You may not realize it until you hear us talking about it. And then you start sitting down and actually thinking about it. Like, it's such a great thing to be a part of.
Yeah.
I've been in sports most of my life in some variation or another, and there's nothing that replaces that.
No, man.
There's not.
Nope. Having a tribe.
Yeah, badass tribe that just you're all making each other better.
Yeah, man.
You're simulating murder on each other on a regular basis.
See, that's one of my things. Honestly, like when I do my meditation and I like, when I'm doing one of my more mindful ones, when I'm thinking about the things I'm grateful for. Like, honestly, like I'm grateful for my jiu-jitsu brothers and sisters. And that's what they are, man. Like, you guys are my brothers and sisters. Like, you guys have my best interests at heart and want to see me be, the best that I can be on a level that, you know, very few people in my life have. And so, like, yeah, man, I'm fucking, you know, super grateful for that. But if you don't think about it, man, it's easy to take it for granted. So,
dude, I hate to say it. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but I have better relationships with the people we train with than most of my family members. I'm closer to most of the people I train with because we're in there sweating and bleeding on each other, and man, you just develop that bond, that suffering bond, and that trust.
Yeah.
And I know when you're really cranking on, you know, a foot lock or an arm lock, that if I'm being too stubborn to tap, I know that you're not gonna just rip it out of socket and just permanently maim me. You know, it's you don't get that anywhere else.
No, man, no.
And your training partners know you so well. They learn how you're gonna react when you're getting smashed. And my parents don't know me like that.
No.
You know, it's just it's tough to say, but it is. It's the truth.
It is, man. No, yeah, your tribe. It's we self-select a little bit. So, you know, like my grandma used to say, family. You didn't get to choose them, but we gotta love them. You know. And jiu-jitsu, man, that's the tribe that you that you picked. And yeah. Anyways, yeah, it's a good note.
Don't take it for granted.
Good note to end on for sure. So.
That's it.
Cool, man. Yeah, I think that was much better.
I think it went significantly better.
Yeah, I feel like that was a good one. At least it got over our low hurdle for standards.
It's pretty low standards.
Yeah, if I'd have thrown in what my pre-show notes were, we might have had to go back under. Anyways, we'll just leave that for you guys to your imagination. So, we're going to go eat some brisket and play some Anatomy Park. And then I got to go to Telluride tomorrow for 3 weeks, and I'll be back as much as I can, try and get some rounds in here and there if I can. But it's gonna.
But by the time this airs, it'll be at the end of the 3 weeks.
Yes.
So you'll be back.
That's right.
To the normal world.
That's right. Yeah. This is like.
This will be coming out about the weekend.
Right. It will be. It'll be the last weekend. Yeah. So cool. All right. Well, wrapping up as always. Grumpy Guy BJJ at gmail.com is where you can reach us. If you got any comments, suggestions, thoughts, anything like that. You can find us online at grumpyguybjj.com, where you can sign up for our podcast updates and get the top 10 BJJ mistakes and what to do instead download, along with a couple workshops and ramping isometric and mobility routine. So just a lot of shit that we were talking about in this episode. And then you can find us on iTunes and Podbean and Stitcher and all the other usual podcast suspects, and Spotify, yes,
that's the big one.
Please leave us a review, give us a little follow, rating, all that stuff helps, and we appreciate it. And so I think that's about it, man.
I think that's it, dude. I'm ready to eat.
Let's go eat. So all right, guys, well, we will talk to y'all next week.
Peace.